So sometimes it's good to hold on to extra parts and do a little extra research. So my brother sent me a picture of a company that sells a modified aluminum bracket, machine bracket, that can fit or adapt the 3.6 liter VR6 engine or R36 to the DQ500 transmission. So it was machined out of aluminum. The holes were offset. These two holes were the same that bolts onto the back of the block, almost close, because the R32 block is a little bit different, but the holes were offset here to fit the 3.6, and then these holes right here were spread out a little bit also to fit the DQ500. But lo and behold, it's good that I hold on to extra parts. Look at here. So this factory bracket has 3 mounting points for the VR6 engine, 3.6 liter versus the 3.2. Here, here, and here. All 3 of these points bolt to the back of the engine block. And 3 mounting points for the transmission case itself, or the transfer case. So this is a lot stronger, a lot sturdier bracket, and reinforced to hold the transmission in position a lot better. So did Volkswagen Audi Group know that people would be launching the 3.6 liter pretty hard? So they wanted to make sure they had a stronger bracket. Well, let's take a look to see how it fit. So I had more than one bracket, and take a look at this. It fits perfect. It mounts onto the engine, and it sits down in there really good. All 3 of those holes mount to the engine, as I stated. And then this part right here that goes onto the transmission itself, the original factory bolts that they had in here, you can see they were painted blue, okay? So these stuck out just a little bit, but they had it shimmed. All right, they had washer right here. You can see the washer blue. This other second bolt that was in here didn't have any blue paint or washer. So I'm like, that is pretty odd. Why would you have one side of the bracket, whether they lost the washer or not? Either way, the same washer, if I put a washer here, we upgrade the bolts to 12.9 just to keep everything consistent, as well as we don't want a bolt shearing off in the transmission case. But either way, we put stronger bolts in here. Our bolts will bolt in to the factory locations, and I stick the washer in between, and everything will mount up perfectly. Same spacing from here, here, and beneath the bottom, and all I have to do is just upgrade the hardware from here. Even at the bottom, let's take a look down here. The back side of the engine, and we don't need this bright light shining here. We'll just move it down here for a little better visibility. And right here on the bracket, you can see same spacing right there. I stick my little washer right there, as well as this bolt will bolt thread right into position. So here we have a nice bracket, as you see, that mounts to the DQ500 using the factory bracket. This is tape that we taped up when we were headed on the engine stand. But either way, we got a nice strong bracket that secures this bad boy to the transmission. Very nice. This is a great find. Nice strong bracket. Aluminum is okay and is nice and lightweight. We got a fixed bracket. We don't have to worry about no holes wearing out, reaming out. This bracket is adjustable too. I can slide it just a little bit to get a little bit closer to the engine, or I can pull it back to give more spacing. So I can butt it up tight. I just left it just a little bit loose so that way I can slide the washer in between. But I can put all 3 washers in position, tighten this up first to get it nice and even across, you know, snug it up, get these snug, bolt everything into position. Nice, great find. So the bracket fits very nice. Factory bracket that came on the R36 engines, certain ones that were all-wheel drive. And I came only across a few of them, but I did keep the bracket, even though I didn't get the transmission, complete transmission with the transfer case. So I still kept the brackets. But one of the good things about it, as I stated before, these I have it spaced apart evenly all the way around, and you can see the little gap here. So if I wanted to install a washer as they had before, I can put 3 washers all the way around and just bolt it in position, or I can notch these holes out if I want it and butt it up very tight up against the transfer case, and then secure 3 grade 12.9 bolts. So I do have the material or room to do that. And just for reference, let's take a quick look at the brackets I have. Same bracket on the engine. I do have room if I need it to kind of notch here, oblong here, if I wanted to, and then shift it up tighter against the engine. Not as much material here, but if I took a little bit out, it still would grab a nice little bit of diameter. But they didn't oblong the holes out that much on this. They kept them pretty fixed, as you can see, even though I can still slide it back and forth just a little bit on there. But as you can see, they still made provisions, like the holes are slotted and you can still slide it back and forth. And this was on a DQ500 versus automatic transmission that was on a 3.6 liter VR6. So if I want to get it nice, butted up tight, I can still notch this out as I stated, but I'll still be consistent. Use the shim, 3 of the same washers, same size washers that came with it. And when I initially bolted, took these bolts out here, you can see this one has blue paint on it. This bolt was actually right in here. Somebody must have spray painted just so you can kind of reference where to put the bolts back in. But either way, this bolt was right here and it had 1 washer on it. And when I went to put the bracket, I'm like, this doesn't match. Why would you have the washer here and have it sticking out further here? That didn't make much sense. I'm not sure if they just didn't have the other washer. This bolt here, they had these bolts out before because no bracket really bolts back here. Even on the DQ500 transmission, I'm not sure if something wrapped all the way around here is possible. I have to look at the original bracket, but I'm not even pressed about that. Either way, like I said, we have 3 strong mounting points on this case itself, and this bolt appeared that it went at the bottom, and this right here should have been gone here. But when they took the original bracket off the engine, they probably just shoved a couple bolts in, let it eat. Either way, I'll stick this bolt, put it in here, take this one out, of course. This bolt goes here, and I'll use 3 shimmed washers all the way around because the distance is very consistent with here. The spacing is consistent all the way around, and just put 3 grade 12.9 bolts in here, and we'll have a nice bracket that's secured against the transmission, no play, and it'll be even better fixed than the modified brackets that some of the other people may possibly sell. It'll be stronger and fixed in position. So we have a nice solution, and it works. Brainstorming over a few things that I'm going to do tomorrow. So I just drew a line here. I'm going to cut this part of my adapter plate for my heat exchanger off, and I'm going to take it back probably close to the center line of the transfer case for right here, the transmission case itself. And that'll give me a little extra room for when I go to run a pressure sensor here to measure my port pressure, as well as it'll lighten up the bracket a little bit. If I want to go even lighter in the future, we can always drill several holes in here, make it look a little bit fancy just to lighten it up. You can go with a larger hole and step it down to smaller all the way across, whatever we wanted to do to lighten it up. But right now, I'm worried about function, reliability, and making sure we can get everything in here to function properly. Also, then this weekend, I'm going to try to start fabricating my piping for my exhaust manifold. I'm not a fan of running the turbo back between the engine and the firewall, and that just comes from prior experience of having turbocharged Volkswagens with the hot turbo back here. You can see the shielding back here already, and this car wasn't even designed to have a turbo on there. This was a 3.2 liter engine. It gets very hot between here, and they ran all this heat shielding just to protect this plastic right here. So I can only imagine you have your heater coil. These fittings are plastic. The heater core connectors itself that this attaches to is plastic. All that can melt up, and this could be a disaster for other cars that are running their cars very hard with a hot turbo placed back here if you don't have the proper shielding. And especially if you're generating big horsepower, you want to be producing a lot more heat. So for example, if these melt off, you're going to have a major coolant leak. It's going to spring a leak, which could definitely set your car on fire. Spring a leak, you can blow your engine. We want reliability, we want function, and we want to be able to run this car at the moment with still having heat, still having AC, still having our luxury amenities that we want until we decide to move closer and closer towards race performance action. But with this big engine right here, 3.6 liters of displacement, we can still have the best of both worlds at the moment. Almost like the Audi R8, you can have a super high performance car and the luxuries of having AC, heat, all of that, where a lot of these other cars, they have to strip down to a bare shell just to get the car even lighter, and it's hot as hell in the summertime. They don't have a lot of luxury amenities that Volkswagen and Audi has kind of been setting as a benchmark and trend setting lately over the past few years. So I'm going to focus also on connecting a lot of my wires, install my brackets, see where I'm going to position my alternator versus the custom made intake manifold that we already have fabricated up. It's just a matter of cutting some of the runners, fix it into position, what type of angle we're going to like. We're not running a small plenum like everyone else. For what reason? This engine, you want to have enough volume to suck. If we have a small turbo, that turbo is making boost almost instantly and all the time. So therefore, you're constantly forcing air in here. So as far as having equal length runners, it is very important, but not as important on a forced induction car. I would suffice to say that's my opinion. And the reason for that is because under pressure, if you have a manifold that's under pressure, the valves are seeing the same amount of pressure, whether this is staggered and this one is longer further back or not. Each valve is going to see the same amount of pressure. If it's 10 psi boost on the back side of this intake valves, all of them is going to see the same psi boost, even if the runners are staggered, which they are. You have cylinders on the back of here, which is 1, 3, 5, and 2, 4, and 6. So boost pressure, but when you're running a bigger turbo, possible turbo lag, hence you need that volume to suck from that volume of air. A lot of people don't realize that the VR6 manifolds has a lot of volume. Those huge runners swing all the way up and all the way over the engine, which is volume itself, and then a separate little plenum right here with a throttle body. And then we take all that volume away and shrink down to something less than 2 liters stuck right across the front of an engine that's 3.2 or 3.6. It don't make much sense to me, but it fits. It's nice for driving around and you're making 600, 800 horsepower and even 1,000 horsepower. That's good for that. When you're pushing over 1,000, you're gonna have to step up the bigger volume.